Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're at. I'm on the West Coast. My name is Lori, and we've got Abba, who is on the East Coast. All right, Abba, are you ready to go
I
here?
am 20 seconds from ready, so we're going to get started. This is the interface. This is what you see when you first open Luminar with Libraries, which is completely empty because we're going to start from scratch. We're going to bring in some media. We're going to walk you through the process of how it works, give you an idea of some of its features and some of the workflow, and then open it up for questions to help clarify things. When you first open Luminar 3, of course, it doesn't know where to look. It doesn't have any images to bring in. So we're going to bring in some images, and then I'm going to walk you through the interface. So on the right side of the interface, you'll see that things have changed a little bit. Everybody here has used Luminar, but not Luminar with Libraries. So the top toolbar has changed, and you actually see there's several different view options in the upper right-hand corner. And the one that I have highlighted in the upper right-hand corner is the library module. And that's where you'll start pointing at all of your images. And the first thing we're going to do is point at some folders to bring in those images. And to do that, we simply hit the plus button, and it'll open up the browse capability of the application. And I have some images here, images for Luminar 3. And I have some before images and some after images. These are before and after processing. And I'm going to actually have Luminar look at both of these folders and bring them into its database. So I'm going to simply click on images for Luminar 3, and I'm going to click on add folder. And what you'll see will happen is it is updating the gallery, and it is starting to populate this. And look how fast that is. It populated it with all the images that were in both of these folders. And the whole idea behind Luminar with Libraries, or Luminar 3, is we wanted to make it very easy for you to conveniently browse and rate and group your photos. And it was really important that it was not just an application that is functional, but it's aesthetically pleasing. And we really wanted to give you a beautiful interface with a really sleek canvas so you can enjoy your images without a lot of distractions. And you'll notice there's not little black boxes around everything. The images are actually set up so you're just looking at your images, and you can very easily go through those. And there's a lot of features that we're going to be looking at. And some of the things you can do is you can group your photos by year and month and date. You can rate them on a scale of 1 to 5 stars and sort them that way, as well as by color. And even if you find a photo you like and you want to find all the other photos from that same day, very easy to find. And the idea behind this, again, the Skylum philosophy is we want this to be easy to use. So if you're a new user, it doesn't have to be intimidating. I'm going to focus on the simplicity and the ease of use. The other things that I want to point out is that it's very easy to make an edit on a single image. And then if you have other images that are similar that were shot at the same time, you can very easily sync all those within the library. And of course, the focus of where we're going with Skylum and where we've already broken a lot of ground is using intelligent filters like our Accent AI filter, which can automatically make an image look great in a few seconds with a single click and a slider, as well as the new Sky Enhancer filter. And we also have intelligent aware filters, things like the foliage and smart toning. So the idea is that we want people to be able to enjoy the process of taking pictures and selecting their pictures, but then the processing part, a lot of times we just want to get them out there and have them look good. So the key is to be able to do things very quickly if you want to, and that's really where we're targeting a lot of this. Let's take a look at the interface and how the edit process worked. So the first thing you may have noticed when I brought this in is that I just clicked on a folder and it quickly populated with thumbnails of all the images in the folder. If it's a JPEG, it just brought that in. If it's a RAW, it generally pulls the JPEG out of the RAW. Most RAW files do have JPEGs embedded in them. And if there wasn't one, it would create it. Now, it's not importing any media. It's actually looking at the Finder level or the Explorer level at these folders. And that really is a great benefit, because if I have this folder which has the images from Luminar, and I'm going to click on this disclosure triangle directly under the word where it says images for Luminar. And if I click on that, you'll see it says after images and before images. And when I went to my original folder, and I'm going to go ahead and hide Luminar for just a moment, there's my images for Luminar, it retained that folder structure. And what's really great about this is if I wanted to throw another set of images in here or another image in here, I don't have to re-import it. Luminar repulls that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a image from this external hard drive, and we're going to visit that later, because the beautiful thing about Luminar 3 is that not only can I look at libraries that are on my computer, I can use any of the cloud services that I might use, whether it's Dropbox or iCloud or my Windows cloud server. But if they're synced with your computer, you can share files. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go ahead and I'm going to go into this portrait folder. Actually, let me get something with fewer images. We'll have some JPEGs here. So I'm going to just arbitrarily look at one of these images, number 4423. So yeah, this was a picture taken a little bit crooked in Arizona, but I'm going to drop that right into my before images. And I want you to see what happens. It copies it over because this is on an external drive. And when I jump back into Lumina, you'll see momentarily that it's going to poll, and that picture is actually going to appear in my folder. But this is a very cool feature. There it is. There's that picture right there. I didn't have to import that. All I had to do was update the folder, and that picture is now available for me to edit. And I do want to remind you, just like previous versions of Luminar, this is completely non-destructive. As you're making your edits, it's just writing that data for the changes into the Luminar catalog. And you can have multiple catalogs, which is nice. All your pictures don't have to be in one giant catalog. You can make catalogs based upon a specific shoot or a specific client or a specific style of photography that you're working with. And it's very easy to switch catalogs and stay organized. So let's continue on and take a look at the interface and the workflow and some of the really cool features that are available. I want to walk you through the toolbar here. We have this drop down on the upper left. This allows me to do several things. I can import an image to a location, which basically means that if I put in a camera card or an external drive, I can actually bring and copy an image into an existing folder or create a new folder. I have the add folder option, and what that allows me to do is exactly what I just did earlier, which is to point to a folder, and it will just reveal all the contents and all the images in that folder, as well as the subset. As a matter of fact, if you look at the images in the before, if I click on that, you can see that the folders that were even inside the before images demonstration, they're organized. So it's very easy to find all of Ivan's images that he sent us. So that's really nice. Now, going back to this dropdown, there's also something called Open Images for QuickEdit. And this feature allows me to bring in one or several images that I may just want to work on and then export, but I don't want to create a library. It's just a quick way of getting something in and something out to edit them without having to add it to my library. Maybe I just want to fix a couple of headshots. Additionally, I can, if I use Quick Import, ultimately move those to a folder that is permanent. So I have a lot of flexibility. As we move over from left to right in our toolbar, this up arrow icon is very important. It allows me to step up a level in my folder structure. So now I'm in the before images, and if I click one more time, I'm looking at all of my images. And I can get to this, of course, this way with the button, but I can also go over here to the right side panel, and I can very quickly jump to any of these folders. As we continue from left to right, we have the options to jump directly to any of the folders that are inside of my folder structure for the Luminar library. And then continuing to move from left to right, there's another dropdown, and this depending on which view you're in, and we have a library view, which we're looking at now, and the edit view, which we're going to look at shortly, it allows me to show that side panel or not. Sometimes you just want to look at your images, see which ones you want to choose. It's a very pretty interface. This is even great if you want to be able to show, your photos to families and friends or to a client, and you don't want them to be distracted by that interface or the side panel on the right side. So that's a very nice feature. While we're in this, I do want to point out that we provide a lot of flexibility on how you're going to view your images, whether you want to see a lot at a time or a few at a time. And it, of course, depends on the resolution of your screen and the size of your computer. So in the case of having a nice large monitor, I may use a lot of small images because then I can see many things. If I'm working on a very small monitor and I want to see a lot, again, I can use small, but sometimes I just want to see things bigger. And I have a choice of viewing these at 4 different sizes. And this is really nice because I can see the detail of my images and determine if I want to actually step in and process it. Or in some cases, you can discover that your thumb was in front of the picture, or maybe you didn't quite have the sharpest focus possible. We're going to explore stepping into this in the library module momentarily, but I want to continue moving across from left to right. So there we have our different views. I'm going to switch to medium here. Depending on how you like to work, we do have a plus and minus button, which does step you through the 4 different sizes that are preset. I'm going to go ahead and reopen up that side panel, and I can do that one of many ways. I'll go back to this button here that says Show Side Panel, so we can talk a little bit about the structure here, and we can also switch over to the Edit module. Now, I do want to point out that there are buttons to navigate through the interface if people like to work that way. There are also drop-down menus if you prefer, so I can go to the view and I can say hide or show my toolbar or my sidebar. And of course, in some cases, these will be grayed out because they're more appropriate in the other view, which is the edit view. And we'll revisit that. But I also want to point out that we have keyboard shortcuts for a lot of these, and that's what I tend to like to use. And I like the fact that they're easy to remember. If I want to be in the library module, L for library. I want to edit, well, that's the develop module for me. And info, I. So I can, if I want, just simply hit the D key, and I'm inside my develop module, and I can start working on an image. I can hit I, and that gets me to the information module. And as you can see, we have some of the metadata available for our images here, which is camera, shutter speed, even the lens, as well as the camera that was used, and of course the date and a histogram. I wanted to point that out. Let's jump back to the library module. I would have normally hit the L key, but my hand was on the mouse, so that's a lot easier. And I want to talk about this. So here we are, we're looking at a single image. But if I wanted to step back up, it is very easy. First of all, I can open up in this library view, the film strip. So this is just another way that I can go through my images. Instead of looking at them all on a big plane, I can actually step through them. And this way I have a full screen version of my image, but it's very easy to step through and find the images that I want to work with. So that's one of the very nice features, and I get that by showing that side panel. You'll see something here called current photo actions, and that's kind of a nice thing. You'll notice that my image has shrunk a little bit, and I have some information at the bottom of the screen. And the key things here is I have the ability to read or modify my star rating. I can favorite a picture, I can reject a picture, or I can unselect any kind of adjustment to that, as well as apply a color. So I can go through here and start rating this picture. I can say this is a 4-star picture. And then if I want to go to the next one, I just use my up and down arrow keys. And at this point, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and click on the star ratings and whatnot. But these are standard keyboard shortcuts. So if I go up and just to be illustrative, and I go up to my image, you can see here, set flag. And we're using standard keyboard shortcuts for that. So for a flag, that's your pick. So P, rejected, X, and unmarked is U. Easy to remember. And the ratings are also the standard ones. You can go ahead and rate something with the numeric keyboard from 0 through 5. And using the left and right bracket keys, you can even change the rating. And there we are with the standard default for different colors. So this is great. You can very quickly go through your images, rate them, color code them, reject them, favorite them, and very easily cull through your images. So I can do this way, and I could just simply go down and say, I kind of like this shot, but I'll give it a 2. And I just hit the numeric keypad for 2, and as you can see, it has 2 stars. Now, if I don't want to look at this view, I can go ahead and go to my group view, and the group view is simply the G key, and it takes me to the group view of all these before images. If I want to see everything, I can simply click on either the top level of this folder or step up. And what's nice here is, look, as I select an image, I can see a shadow of my star rating and if it's favorited. So at this point, I can even star rate or just use my left and right arrow key in this view and go ahead and rate this. This is a 3, this is a 2. I really think I have potential for this one. I'll give it a 4. This is a 3. I love this shot. I'll give it a 5. And maybe I'll start doing some coloring that, okay, we're going to make this green because I want to do some photo work on it, and the same thing here. So I've been it's very easy for me to rate these, and this is where I can really start refining what I'm looking at. And in this case, if I want to, I can go up to the upper right-hand corner of the interface right below the toolbar, and you can see there are 2 search types. One, I can show all the photos, but if I wanted to, I could say, you know what, just show me everything that's 2 stars or more. So that's really kind of nice. I can very quickly say that. And I said, no, I really don't want 2 stars. I want 3 stars. So I can easily sort once I've actually tagged my photos. The other thing I can do is I can, of course, look by color. And if I've edited, now I haven't edited any pictures yet, but you'll see once I start editing, it'll be great because I can very quickly just find the images I've worked on, so I don't have to really dig for those. But let's go ahead and uncheck that. And we're going to bring back all of my photos. And we're going to start working with that. So that's the idea of working with folders and bringing things in. If I wanted to, I could add another folder to this catalog. I'm going to simply hit the plus key. I'm going to locate some, and I'm going to locate some on my external hard drive. So I have this Skylum SSD, and I have a bunch of images here. And I just want to show you how this works. So I can go in and I have some shots from Arizona, and I can work with both raw files and JPEGs. I can work with picked files and TIFF files, just the way we did with the traditional Luminar. So I can go in and I can bring in all of these images if I want, or just bring in a single image. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in that whole folder. As a matter of fact, let's jump back up to Arizona, and we'll click to JPEGs and hit Add Folder. And what you'll see is that it will start populating all these shots that I took here. And I can sort these however I want. You can see they're kind of sorted in what appears to be random, but I have it sorted by file type. But if I wanted to, if I had rated these, I can sort by my rating, so I can see the ones I rated highest, or by file name, file size, and also date captured. So it's very nice that I can bring these in and I can very quickly get to these. Now, a nice thing is that I can, if I want, rename this folder because right now it says JPEGs. But I do want to point out that we're actually working with the folder inside the operating system. So if I rename that, it's going to rename the folder in the operating system. This is a great thing because you can organize your images after the fact. You can rename the folders. You can reorganize folders. But let's just say that I'm going to call this Arizona Portrait Selects. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And I'm going to hide this now for just a moment. And if we take a look inside this folder, which is where I got things, look at that. It no longer says JPEGs. It says Arizona Portrait Selects. So it's really allowing me to control what's happening with my images and label things properly. And now I know exactly where that is, and it's very easy to link. Now I'm going to jump back over here. Actually, I'm going to do something that happens to all of us. I'm going to take this offline, and I want you to see what happens. So I'll right click on this and I'm going to eject this external drive temporarily. It says it's being used. I might have to quit out of Luminar, or I could do the most dangerous thing in the world, which is unplug it. But let me go to just looking at a different folder. And now if I go back over to if I go back over to here, and I'm going to simply scroll down and eject this. Let's see if it'll let me eject this now, or force eject. Sometimes the Mac will let me do it, but I'm going to break a rule here. I'm going to probably blow up my drive, but I'm going to unplug this without properly removing it. And I want you to see what happens. We have my portraits, and what it's done is it has remembered the thumbnails, and it has put a little bit of a warning sign saying that these are the images, but they're not online. Okay, so I can see kind of a low res preview. I can still rate these images. I can give this a 3. I can go through, and this is really nice because even if my images aren't online, I can go through and find one. Like, I love this image. I'm going to give this a 5. And I'm trusting that this is a low resolution version. I'll give this also a 5. And I want you to see what happens when I plug the drive back in, because it is offline, but I can still work with this. So I'm going to plug that back in. I'm going to let that boot up. And while I'm there, we'll go back to images for Luminar 3. And look, take a look. Arizona Portrait Selects is no longer grayed out. There's no longer a warning sign. I didn't have to reconnect everything. I'm going to hit the G key so I can see all of my images. And then I'm going to simply filter by rating. And there we go. I can actually see the ones that I rated that I really like to work with. And this is really a very, very cool feature of working with Luminar. Now, let's continue with our overview of the interface. Let me hit that show key. There we go. And so there we have our 2 different folders that we're looking at. And that if I go up a level, I can actually see all of my images that I have in this catalog. Let's take a look at what happens when I want to start editing an image. What you're going to be excited by is the ease of use and how fast you can start editing images. So I'm going to switch over to the Edit module. And remember, I threw out a keyboard shortcut. What am I doing with these images? I'm developing them. So I can simply hit the D key and it jumps me over to the Edit module or the Develop module. So let's go ahead and process this image here. I think I like the look of that. I can simply double click on that, bring that full screen, and I'm ready to start doing some editing. So if we look at these top 3 buttons, we have the options to hide or show our histogram. We also still have layers, as you can see. Again, easy to turn it on and off. Now, the new location for something you might be familiar with is the history panel. Now, obviously, I haven't done any editing to this, but the history panel, and this is one of the things that's truly unique about Luminar, is the fact that we have basically an endless history. It's not 20 steps, it's not 30 steps. It will go all the way back to the original edit. So that's really nice. And this is saved when you quit Luminar with Libraries. That history is always there, so you can always step back. But this is its new location, just for those who will be looking for it on the toolbar. So now we're ready to actually start edit. And I wanted to revisit one of the things that make Luminar unique, which is the idea of workspaces. So a lot of times, folks, they just want to use a handful of filters and make their pictures better, whether it's the professional workspace or the quick and awesome. And each of these workspaces will open up a set of filters that are pre-designated without any adjustments to them. So I don't have to keep bringing in individual filters. I also like the fact that even if I go to a preset, I can still add additional filters to that workspace that I might want to use. I'm going to switch over to the Quick and Awesome workspace. It's one of my favorites. I'm going to close the Add Filter window so we can see the image completely. Now, I really do like this image kind of out of the box. I think it may want a little cropping, but she has really nice lines. Love the red dress contrasting the green. So I'm going to just try a little bit of the Accent AI and pull that across. And it's pretty well exposed, but it did bring out a lot of the detail in some of the green in the background. Now you'll notice that the sky enhancer filter is grayed out. And that's because there's no sky in the image. And Luminar is image aware enough that it can determine if there's no sky, it just grays out the filter. So you can use presets that have the AI sky enhancer and not worry that if there's no sky, it's going to cause a problem. However, if there is sky, that would be highlighted and you would be able to easily edit. So as a matter of fact, if I jump up to this really nice image here, I can go in and I can go with the accent AI filter to bring out some of that toning and detail. And then with the sky filter, I can move that and it's going to just affect the sky. Now, the beautiful thing about the sky enhancer filter is it recognizes sky. It can determine the difference between sky and water. It knows its location and it can work with sky anywhere from blue hour in the morning to blue hour at night. And that includes also all those sunrises and sunsets. So if I go over, and these are a lot of really nice images, let's see if I can find a poor image. And that's always the challenge. I'm going to hit the G key and scroll through, see if I can find something with sky that needs a little bit more work. And I think this is a perfect image to go to. And I want just to show, I switched back by just hitting the G key or the L key, either one would take me, to get to this image I want. And then I can just double click on it and it moves me directly into the edit mode so I can start developing it. Quick and awesome is my default. It was already set. So with a few sliders, I move that to the right. Look how that's opening up and revealing all the details here that I can see now in the foreground. It's just making this pop. But I love this sky and I want this sky to be better. So I have that sky enhancer filter. And look at that. It brings out, and it really brings out the nuances and the details of the reds in the sunset, yet still maintains the blue a lot better than just throwing a polarizer filter on it. Now, if I push this all the way, and I'm thinking I really want this sky to pop, it's really easy to add a second sky filter. I could go into the filter menu, or if I want, I can just go to this little drop down next to AI Sky Enhance and simply click on Duplicate. And now I'm running the filter twice, and each one has its own separate controls. But look at that. It's really brought out the sky. I brought out my foreground with the accent AI. And I think the saturation is good, but I'm going to bring down the saturation just a little bit. And I'm going to bring up the vibrance. And the reason I do this is because saturation is pretty much like painting with a broom. If it's already saturated, it makes it more saturated. But vibrance is smart. If a color is more muted, it brings up the saturation. But if it's already saturated, it leaves it alone. So this is really nice. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at some of the other buttons in the interface. You'll notice that directly to the right of each of the filters, you have a little paintbrush, and that is your masking tool. But I do want to point out this button here, and that will delete the filter. So if I want to delete the filter, and then the eyeball allows me to temporarily toggle the filter on and off. So I'm just seeing what this one sky filter is doing to my image. Now you may be asking where some of the other buttons are. Well, if you go to the drop-down menu directly to the right of the name of the filter, there you can see is your reset button, which will reset that filter. And also you can find under here that one of the ways that you can remove a filter by deleting it, as well as your blending mode, modifications to the mask if you've created it, and as you saw earlier, my ability to duplicate this image to duplicate this filter if I wanted to really, really push it. So that's kind of nice. Sometimes you want to look at the before and the after. You can do that in the top toolbar. With the eyeball, that'll toggle you between the original image, which is pretty, but not super impressive. But with a few sliders, take a look. Now that's an image that you really would want to show off to friends. And to the right of that is your split screen or your compare option. And that way I can actually look at both images at the same time. And as you can see, it's really brought out the sky without affecting the foreground. And I really see a lot more detail inside my images. So I really do love the fact that with just 3 or 4 sliders, I was able to take an image that was just potentially beautiful and actually bring out the beauty of the image and what was seen by the eye of the photographer when that image was taken. I also want to point out that any filter that I've modified has turned yellow. So visually, I know what I've changed. So I can go here and I see I haven't done any with clarity, and maybe I don't need to, but I'm going to go ahead and, add a little clarity to the midtones of the color, and it just kind of brings out a little more of the detail. So very quickly, I have this great image that I can work with. And here's a similar one. And what I want to point out here is a couple of the other features that are available. I'm going to go ahead and jump back to the library mode. I'm going to just simply hit the L key. You can see I'm in the library mode, and G just shows me all of my images. But if I wanted to, I could take this image that I processed. I believe it wasn't that one. So let's see if I can find all the similar ones that I took that day. So I can't find this, or can I? So I'm going to go up here under All Photos, and I'm going to actually go to Recently Edited. So these are the ones that I've played with. These are the ones I've made changes to. And I'll simply right-click on this, and what I want to do is go to Images from the same date. So perhaps I have other images that I shot on this same date. And I'm going to go ahead. That was Tuesday. We have September and October. So there's a finished one. I don't have any other ones there. But that's really a nice feature. And I'm going to show you that actually in play with some of this Arizona footage. I'm going to jump all the way to the top level. Going to go back to this Arizona shoot. And actually, we'll go here. Similar person, different outfit. And I'm going to say go to images from this same date. And there we go. Everything that I shot on that day, I have it sorted by rating, but I'm going to switch it to capture time. So now I see that they're grouped. And you'll notice, might be saying, actually, let me make this nice and small. I thought I caught a problem here, but I didn't. Yeah, I did. You'll notice uh, this, I have images over here and over here, two different places, and I said go to the same date. It organized them by the date and the time, and these were shot with two different cameras, and I didn't have the time set for the each camera to be the same. So actually, it appears that I shot her earlier in the day and later in the day, but that is not the case. So as you can see, now here we have three images, and I'm going to go ahead and show you that syncing function. So I'm going to click on this image. This is the image, not the greatest image. I think I was testing the light and there wasn't a lot of light, but I can go over to the edit mode and I have quick and awesome. I could also use portrait if I want, but I'm going to be lazy. Quick and awesome quickly brings up my toning. There's no sky. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and add a couple of filters. I'll add a filter, and I'll add here the develop filter, and that way I can open the exposure up a little bit, and I'm going to add, I want a high key. And the nice thing is if I can't find something quickly, I can go up to the search box and just type in high, and there we go. There's high key. I can click and apply that, and adding a little bit of high key, that's going to soften the skin a little bit. And I'll add a little bit of saturation because that does mess that up. It is crooked, and I can fix this one of several ways. In the develop module, I can go into the lens, and I can go ahead and fix distortion and vignetting. And I can also click on the transform. And if I want, I can rotate that. And if I needed to, I can go ahead and fix parallax. She's probably a little bright, so I'm going to add one more filter, and then I'm going to show you how we sync it. So I'm going to add a toning filter, and I love this. We have a lot of these image-aware filters, so I'm going to just do a general toning, and I want to show you one of the features that I really like. It puts it down at the bottom. If I didn't want this at the bottom, by the way, very easy to move any of these filters around by simply dragging them up. And I'll go to toning here, open that up, and I'm going to use Smart Tone. And what Smart Tone will allow me to do is if I move it to the right, it'll open up my shadows without blowing out my highlights. And move it to the left, it will dim my highlights without crushing my shadows. I want to open up the background a little bit and probably bring down the highlights on her. And we have kind of a nice image here. And this is what I want to show you. I have developed it once. And so I have two ways that I can approach this. I can right click on that and I can copy all of the adjustments. And I could then paste it onto another image. So I'll just select that image, right click, and I can just paste those adjustments. and it will paste all of the adjustments I did, and I could tweak it. Or what I could do is I could, with this selected, I could hold down the Command or the Alt key, select other images from this shoot, and simply right click, and under adjustments, I'll go sync adjustments. And what Luminar will do is, look at that, it just processed all of these images and got them really pretty close to where the developing that I want. I'm going to show you with this one selected. I'll simply make sure that's loaded into my develop module. And there we can look at the before and the after. And I was able to do that by syncing images. And the beauty is, this is really, really fast. So with that in mind, I want to show you how I would use a second layer, just maybe for skin tones, because I have the image processed how I want. So I go to the Create Layer button, add a new adjustment layer, and I'm going to go down and open up the looks. If I go up to the center of my screen, there's the little button here, and that is my looks, or you might have known them as your preset buttons. So here we are, and we have brand new looks created with the new version. I have some additional ones here, but you'll notice that if the photo icons are different, this is an indication that we have the new looks. As a matter of fact, you can still transfer your old presets in. They might act a little differently because we've tweaked some of the code under the hood to make things better, faster, sharper. But if I wanted to, I could apply one of the portrait looks. And here we go. I'm just going to go here under female portrait. It already smooths things out a little bit. I'm going to take the structure down just even more to smooth that out. I think the vibrance and the color is a little bit high, but here's the thing. I just want her skin to be sharp. So this was before, and I'm just hitting the little eyeball to the right. It's just adding a little bit of tone and it's softening the skin. I'm going to even bring that structure down a little bit dramatically less. And I don't want it to affect the rest of the image. So at this point, I'll simply go over to my masking brush, click on that and choose the brush. You see up in the upper left, I can paint or erase. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to paint in that nice soft skin structure here. And I can do that very quickly. And if I needed to see exactly what I'm affecting, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I know we have some skin here, is I can go over and click on the little eyeball and see how poorly I paint, but that will allow me to easily make sure I hit the right spots, didn't make her eyes fuzzy, and I can switch between paint and erase with these buttons or simply the X key. So now I'm real good and I'm ready to export my image, and that'll be the last thing, and then we'll take some questions with the time we have left. So I have my image and I can export this one of a couple ways. Let me get out of the masking tool. And if I go to the same location that you would have seen in previous versions, I can export this as any of a variety of images. And we can go ahead and export that. We can hit save. And I can also export and choose what I want. It's actually doing all the calculations. I can select a bunch of images and export them all at once. So I can definitely do batch exporting from within here, as well as I can also export this way. And so we can go. And I have actually, I'm exporting all 5 of these images. Let me go ahead and hit cancel. What I want to do is if I export just one image, I want to point out that when you do one, I will get that dialog box that allows me to choose what format. So I have my TIFF. I can keep it original size, 16-bit, choose my compression and save it anywhere I want. So that's very nice. So with that, that is a rapid overview of how it works. And I will open up to some questions that people might have about the application. Lori?
There was a question, actually, a couple of people were asking about the file size for the actual database library. So here's an example. If all the editing info is stored within Luminar, I assume that the database will get very large after editing it for a while. I'm not sure what can be done about it, but will removing folders from Luminar remove all the files associated with the edits that have been done?
Well, let me show you how Luminar works under the hood with our catalog. So by default, it puts the catalog inside your pictures folder. But when you create a new catalog, you can put it anywhere. So if your images are on an external drive, you can put the catalog on the external drive. And you can have multiple catalogs. But let's open up the catalog and take a look at how it functions. First of all, the catalog does automatically back up periodically, so that if there's any problem with the catalog, it's very easy to restore it. So there's an automatic backup. And while you're inside Luminar, I'm going to just jump here for a second. You can go up under File, Catalog, and in addition to opening recents, my mouse is so sensitive, you can go ahead and you can even create your own backup at any point. Okay, and it's going to back up exactly what I'm going to show you here. And then you can always restore that backup. The other thing is, I did indicate you can have multiple catalogs. So if I wanted to, as a matter of fact, you see I actually have a catalog from some DJI stuff I shot. So I can keep things in smaller catalogs to keep things under control. But let's take a look at this catalog and its size. So first of all, because we are not importing any of the images into the catalog stays relatively small. The entire catalog for these images that I brought in, I don't know how many it is, I can check once I switch back, is only in a little bit over probably 53, 54 megabytes. But I want to open up the history panel to show you what's happening inside. And what's happening inside is that each image has its own .state file attached to it, so that if one image is corrupted or goes bad, it doesn't take down the whole catalog. So each image has a state, and that actually is all the edits. Now, if you've recalled, Luminar traditionally wasn't creating very large files, and we have followed that because basically this is the math to create this file. Now, the one thing it does build is when you create any kind of either a clone and stamp or an erase or a stamped layer, it will create that file and keep it in the database. Okay, so that's where you're going to get things to grow in those instances. But in general, it is not a big, heavy catalog. And the nice thing is that I can modify catalogs after the fact. Let me go ahead and close this out. I'm going to switch over to the library module again. And as you can see, there's the dates of all my images. So it's great if I need to find something. Everything shot on Wednesday, March 18th. Let's go ahead and close that up, all photos. These are the ones I brought in, the last ones. And my favorite is this recently edited. What did I edit this day? What did I edit this month? And I can very quickly jump to my recent folders so I don't have to do a lot of hunting. The other thing I can do is I can select a folder, and in addition to modifying it and renaming it, I can remove that catalog from my environment. Now, I do want to point out a couple of things while I am talking about catalogs, is there's an area here called albums. Now, unlike folders, which is actually looking at the folder structure that's in the Finder or in Explorer, an album is creating virtual selections. So I can call this Western. And right now, it just moved that one image into Western. But if I go ahead and either go to my side panel and open it up, or even step up to the Arizona shots, I can go ahead, select multiple images. I'm just holding down the Command and the Alt key. And I just want some of these close-ups of the Western ones that I really like, my highlights. And I can, with these selected, just drag those in to my Western album. Now, nothing has been moved, but what I've done is I've created an album of selects that I can work with. And I use this many different ways, just like you saw here, or perhaps I go ahead and I sort my photos by everything that's 4 stars and more. And I'm going to do this in all my images 4 stars and more, and there shouldn't be that many because I only did a few. And I can go ahead and I can drag all of these into an album, and those can be my selects. So albums are just another way that you are empowered in the Luminar library. So hopefully that not only answers that question, it added a little more information to how Luminar 3 works.
That is great. Yes, you covered a lot there. Okay, one last question, and then I want to show you folks the roadmap. So, Abba, can you talk a little bit about using Luminar 3 with plugins for Lightroom, Photoshop, Aurora?
Absolutely. So you can use Luminar as a plugin. If you do not choose to install it as a plugin when you first install the application, you will get a pop-up. You can, after the fact, go under and find install plugins. It is under Luminar on a Mac, and I believe it's under File on a PC. And when you click on that, it will look at all the different applications available on your operating system that you can install it as a plugin. So in this case, I've installed it as both Photoshop and Lightroom, which means when I'm inside of those applications, I can simply right-click and send to Luminar, edit in Luminar, and then when I'm done, all I have to do is say add, and it adds it back, and it places it back inside of Lightroom into the catalog, and saves a copy there. And if I'm in Photoshop, I would do that with a layer. I would suggest using a smart object, because then I can send it to Luminar, take advantage of all the powers of Luminar. And then, again, when I'm done, I simply would save it back to Photoshop. It goes back into that same layer. And because it's a smart object, if I wanted to, I can step back inside and make additional changes. So it's very easy to get out from both of those applications into Luminar and leverage it as a plugin. But I can also be inside of Luminar. And let me go here to the very top layer. I'm going to just jump right up here. And if I wanted to, I could say, you know what, I've developed this to a certain extent, or even just using this as a catalog. And I can right click and I can say open in. And there's a couple ways you can do this, but the end result is the same. And I can open that in Photoshop, and it will take that image, open Photoshop, and start it as a Photoshop document. Same thing for Lightroom. And if you're on a Mac, you can use Photos, and it integrates very nicely with the Photos applications on a Mac.
Okay, great. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take over the screen and show you folks just a couple things here. So this is the roadmap, and I know some of you folks are asking about some future features and functionality of the product. And so they did put together this web page that's specifically showing you what's going to be coming up in both Mac, Windows, and cloud. So we're looking at the Mac section right now. I put the link in our chat box, but if you want to go see it, it's just skylum.com, Luminar Roadmap. And so this will show you what's coming up next, which will be our release date, and then some future plan throughout the year. Do keep in mind that folks that have Luminar 2018 will get some free updates through July. So that's a really nice thing to help promote. But these are some of the things you're going to be implementing. So keep in mind, this is our first iteration of a really big release with brand new features. And I hope that you folks are as impressed as we are with Abba's presentation here. Okay, Abba, thank you so much for a fantastic presentation, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.